All right. There we go. Week 3 of the... and you never know what to do, so I make this up as I go. But just, I'm not usually this erratic. This is a class that you were supposed to be taking called Know What You Believe. I have 50 typewritten pages. This is just outline form. This is not script. This is just the outline of the class that I'm going to teach you next on all the major doctrines of the Christian faith. And I'll give you this, but this is what you postponed for whatever we're doing here. This starts the first week of February.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Same time.
Yeah, that's sort of our format. The Wednesday night, Thursday, you decide which is better for you. Mm-hmm. Yep. And generally, it's better to take the Thursday class because I'm making it up on Wednesday, and by Thursday, I've figured it out. All right, let's pray. And you know what we're going to do today? The mark of the beast. The mark of the beast. It's going to be great. Scrub your forehands, get your right hand. Watch out for the microchips. It's a cashless society. The vaccine is coming. All right, let's pray. Lord, thank you for the opportunity once again to be together as your people, the people of God, studying your word, gathered around your word to hear your truth. I pray that through your Spirit you'll apply it to our hearts today. A difficult topic, difficult passages of Scripture we understand, but they are written so they can be understood. And I pray that you'll help us to do that through your Spirit this morning. For Christ's sake we pray. Amen. Amen. Okay. So, Revelation chapter 1. The first thing we're going to do is I'm going to give you a little 30,000-foot flyover on how to read the book of Revelation. It appears with everybody's interest that I'll have to teach this book. Probably I'll teach it this fall. I'll teach you the whole book so you can get it. But I'll give you 7 things this morning on how to read it, and then we'll take those 7 principles of reading the book of Revelation, and we will apply them to Revelation 13, which is where the beast, there's actually 2 beasts you realize. There's a sea beast and a land beast. And so you get the mark of which beast? Oh, you don't know. See, no one told you that, did you? and then in 14 chapter 1, that mark is contrasted with the mark that is given by God on your forehead if you are with him, right? So there's actually a contrast of marks. And then, of course, right at the end of Revelation 13 is the dreaded number 6. 6. It's bad. It's a bad number, right? How many of you have page 666 in your Bible? Oh, you probably ought to rip that right out. We're going to remove it from the hymnal as well, just in case. It's that bad.
Just to give you, I made a check out that was a 666, and they wouldn't take the check.
Who wouldn't?
The place where I was, Kohl's. And they said, your check didn't go through. I said, my checks, I've been here all the time. My checks always go through. This one's not going through.
Yeah.
I made another check. There was no problem.
Yeah. She didn't have funds. She didn't have any funds in the account. She didn't. That's the oldest dodge in the book. You didn't make the deposit, so now you write a check for 666. Of course it bounced. I'm teasing. All right, Revelation chapter 1. I joke about this stuff because almost everything that Christians, and it's really a certain camp within Christianity, almost everything that it does in regard to Revelation really borders on superstition. It's not Scripture. And I tease about it, and again, I don't want to get in a big thing about it, and these are brothers and sisters in Christ, and so I tease in good love, and we're not breaking fellowship, or I don't mean anything like that, of course not. But I'm still going to tease you. I'm still going to let you have it in a good-natured way, I hope. All right, so Revelation chapter 1. How do we read the book of Revelation? We read it like any other book in the Bible. Every book in Scripture, every book in the New Testament, think of it this way, just if you want to narrow it down, is written what Bible scholars called situationally. And what that means is that, just as an example, Paul wrote to a particular situation in Rome, to a particular situation in Ephesus, to a particular situation in the churches of Galatia, to a particular situation in Colossae. So he's all the authors of Scripture are writing to particular groups of people at a particular time for a particular purpose. They're writing situationally. Revelation is no different. John is writing to particular people. They're real people. They're alive and well at a particular time for a particular purpose. It's no different. John is not writing to an unknown group of people thousands of years in the future who are the last human beings to be alive on earth, and he has no idea who they are. That's not who's being written to here. So that's number one. You read it like you read any other New Testament book in that way. Number two, what that means is when we read any New Testament book, we do grammatical historical interpretation. What does that mean? Grammatical means that we understand the language for what the language means. In the purposes of God, God chose to communicate in language. And that means you have to sort of get good at language, and you can be fooled if you don't understand particular types of language. When you went to school, you had to be taught how to read poetry. The doctor never spanked the bottom of a natural-born reader of poetry. It's something that you're taught. And we all remember how confused we were in class. My class was taught by Jessie Mae Hempel. Oh, Orchard Beats. She became a friend after I graduated and grew up and all that. Great English teacher. But believe me, she had to teach me how to read poetry. When I met Brenda, she only listened to country music. And I was forced to go to, like Alabama concerts in the round, Now, I don't listen to country music. I don't listen to Christian music. I listen exclusively to jazz. That's all I listen to. So only Dawn will know when I say boop-ba-da-ba-doo-ba-da-ba-doo-ba. That sounds like nonsense to a listener of country music, right? She just thought it was a jumble of notes. It didn't mean anything. It was crazy. But over the years, she's learned to come to appreciate not maybe some way out there bebop or something like that, but Chet Baker or some of the Miles Davis ballads and stuff. It's a. Do you remember your first beer, George?
My first beer, yes.
Yeah, it didn't taste that great, did it? So it's an acquired taste, right? All right, so that's what Revelation is. This is apocalyptic language, grammatical, historical. This is apocalyptic language, and there are virtually, in this period of time, for whatever reasons, this was a very popular genre, a very popular writing style in the intertestamental period. We have hundreds and hundreds of examples of apocalyptic literature. And it's sort of, it's pretty obscure to us because we're just not used to reading it. So you have to be taught, like poetry, you have to be taught like jazz to read this kind of literature because it's not anything that we really have an example of. The closest thing we have is maybe fantasy and science fiction, but there's a lot of different rules with that, but that's as close as maybe I can get to with that kind of thing. Grammatical historical. Historical means that you don't understand any passage in Scripture unless you understand the language, the particular language and the situation it was written to, but also the historical situation that it was written to. It was written to particular people at a particular time. It wasn't written just willy-nilly. It was like a laser focused. And you can see that when you're reading through the epistles, right? Paul gets to the end, greet this one and greet that one and greet that. These are particular people. They have names. He knows who they are. Greet them. Hey, 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 hey. So I always try to remind you when you're reading your Bible, the Bible was never written to you. Not one book of the Bible was written to you. They were all written for you, but never to you. You weren't there. And it's now been at least 2,000 years for the New Testament and 4,000 since Moses wrote. So they weren't written to you, but they're written for you. And the reason that we have to learn how to do it is because that distance in time and language creates, some sort of gap for us. None of it was written in English. This is all translated. You wouldn't be able to read it all. If I brought downstairs my Greek New Testament, my Hebrew Old Testament, it would look like gibberish to you. So it's been translated, all right? So that creates more distance now, all right? So we're going to learn a whole new style of writing that you have probably never had to interact with. The problem is Christians have read Revelation without understanding the style of writing, learning the grammatical, historical nature of apocalyptic literature, and they read it like they're reading the New York Times, and you just look silly when that happens. You just end up with egg on your face, because you're just reading it wrong, all right? So I'm going to get you at least off on the right foot today, and then we're going to apply some of that to Revelation 13, and it'll be incomplete, and you'll feel frustrated just like every other class we've had. All right, Revelation 1:1, you ready? We're going to sally forth. Here we go. So we're going to do 7 principles, all right? The revelation, let's just stop right there. Now, you read Revelation as capitalized letter, as a proper pronoun, because it was named Revelation, and these books are named almost always because of the first couple words in the book. They come without titles originally. What is a revelation? Yeah, it's not a trick question. It's the opposite of obscuring. This was not written, in other words, for obscurity, to fool you. It is to reveal something. It's to show you something. It's written for absolute clarity. It's the revelation of clarity of what? So that you can be a clairvoyant for the last generation of human people alive at some future point just prior to the return of Christ? No. The revelation of Jesus Christ. It's to reveal something about Jesus Christ. So you read the book of Revelation, and yes, it's different language, but what you're supposed to learn at the conclusion of reading is more about Jesus and more about what he's doing. The revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave Jesus, him, to show his bondservants. If I want to show Roland something, do I hide it from him or do I show it to him? I show it to him. Look, read the language. Everybody who, is on the other side of the equation for me says they're literal interpreters of the Bible. They're not literal enough. That's my beef with them. They get way too imaginative when they need to stick to the text. It's to show something. So, you should read this and you should see it. It's not a concealed book. To show his bondservants, S-U, what? Things which must soon take place. You familiar with the word soon? If I say to David, this is going to happen pretty soon here. David's not thinking, probably 2,000 years from now he'll do that for me. Soon means soon. It's not a trick word. So John is writing something so that the people who are reading it will understand that there's something going to happen pretty quickly here, and they need to know about it. Something that which soon must take place. And he, meaning Jesus, sent and communicated it by his angel to his servant John. So Jesus didn't conceal it, he communicated it. Are you getting the thrust of this? This is all about, okay, time to open up the box and see what's inside. The box has been closed up long enough. We're going to show you something. It's going to be communicated. You're going to see it. It's going to be clear. It's going to be understood. And it's going to happen pretty quick. All right? And that's the reason you need to know about it, because it's not something that you're going to hit the pause button for the next 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000 years, who knows who. It's going to happen right now. And so I need to tell you about it. Verse 2, by his angel to his bondservant John, who testified. When you testify, what do? You say it out loud. You go to court and testify. Do you sit there with all dummied up? Or do you speak the truth? So testimony is about, again, this whole passage is about getting it out. Who testified, what? To the Word of God. To the written text. And to the testimony of Jesus Christ, even to all that he, meaning here now John, saw. So John is going to testify, he's going to tell you everything that he saw. Blessed is he who reads and those who hear the words of the prophecy. By the way, can you be blessed if it's unintelligible to you? There's no way to be blessed by the words of this prophecy if it's completely unintelligible. There's no way to be blessed if the words of this prophecy have nothing to do with you, but are only for the last generation of humanity to be alive just before the rapture. Right? Makes sense? Why would they want to read this? Why would they be blessed by that? It's ridiculous. So, blessed is he who reads and those who hear the words of the prophecy. And oh, by the way, once you are blessed and you hear them and you read them, which means they become visible to you, they're so visible that you have to do something. You have to heed the things which are written in it. In other words, it's going to be so visible, so clear, so understandable, so intelligent that you're going to have to pay attention and change your behavior accordingly. And then, just in case you forgot, for the time is near. For, you know what for means, right? Because.
Well, through the whole Testament, they're always saying, be prepared. Jesus could come at any time. So why is it any different here when you're saying soon?
It doesn't say that. Where does it say that throughout the whole Old Testament? Jesus could come at any time.
Well, be prepared. You never know when the hour may come, right?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
You're thinking of the Olivet Discourse said once.
Okay.
And
it was said once. Okay.
And it wasn't said about there's no word in Scripture on rapture. And when we get to the Olivet...
I'm not talking about
right.
rapture right now. I'm just talking
It's not talking about a second coming. The entire Old Testament, what is the coming of the Lord? What does that mean? Oh, I know what it means to you, dispensationalists. It means, that he's going to come on a cloud and you're going to get zooped up to the New Jerusalem and hover above on a cloud somewhere.
I was just reading 1 Thessalonians.
Of course you were. Chapter 4, attaboy. It doesn't explain anything you're explaining, I can tell you that.
Excuse my word. It said that the people who are asleep, which is the saved people that are dead, right, will rise before, and then all us believers will meet Jesus in the clouds, correct? Is that what it says?
Meet him in the air, yes.
In the air in the clouds. It did say clouds in my mind.
I bet it did.
Well, I can't say anything without
You can,
picking it apart.
yeah, you know what? First of all, because I hadn't even finished reading the first 3 things, and I've got 7 things to tell you, and you're jumping into some.
Okay.
Go ahead. I want to know because you got everybody hooked now.
The word soon is my point that you make.
If soon doesn't mean soon in every place that it's used, if soon just means some indeterminate thousands and thousand years of time, it's a nonsense word.
Well, I took it as not so much here, but as for you to be prepared. For you, if you think it's going to be thousands upon thousands of years before Jesus is coming again, right? Mm-hmm. They're not going to be prepared, or they might not be prepared. There,
Yeah, we've got confusion of so many metaphors here. I don't know how to tease it apart, but I've got to do it quickly because it has nothing to do with what we're doing right here. But just for the record, every instance in the Bible that talks about the coming of the Lord is the coming of the Lord in judgment. It's not the coming of the Lord for the second advent. Every time it's the coming of the Lord in judgment. What you're talking about is this generation will see this happen in the Olivet Discourse. It's coming soon. It did happen. It's already fulfilled. The Olivet Discourse has nothing to do with the hoary distant future about the second advent. The Olivet Discourse is exclusively about the coming of judgment in Jerusalem and the destruction of the temple. And Jesus said, your generation will see all of this. Prepare. And that's what you're talking about. And what you did is you microscoped and telescoped that into a 3,000-year future. And the reason I trust the Bible is because everything Jesus said was going to be true in Matthew 24, Mark 13, and Luke 21 came true in 70 AD to a letter. That prophecy has already been fulfilled. So it has nothing to do with him coming in the second advent. The Olivet Discourse has already been fulfilled completely. 1 Thessalonians 4 is written to warn the Thessalonians who thought that he might have already come. In other words, Thessalonians is saying just the opposite that you think it says. Paul is saying to people, to a church, the church of Thessalonica, don't you worry, he has not already come.
Excuse me? I didn't.
Don't you worry, he has not already come. And when the second advent occurs, it won't be a secret rapture. Every eye will see, it will be loud, everybody will know it. When Jesus returns in power and glory, there'll be no secret anything. And so what he's doing in 1 Thessalonians 4, which every rapturist and futurist says is a description of the rapture. The rapture doesn't appear anywhere in Scripture, and that's not a description of it either. That's a description of the second advent. And when Christ comes, Paul says, this is what it will look like, and you will know what it looks like because there will be signs that will happen. And so don't you worry, live for Christ, continue living for Christ. And the person, and this is where you get little verses that you like otherwise, but maybe haven't connected the dots. And the person who thinks that they can just hit the pause button because the rapture's coming and stop working and doing stuff like that, that's where he says, he who doesn't work doesn't eat, right? So all those things are connected. Don't get this attitude of like, hey, I can just hang out and do what I want because he's going to come like tomorrow.
No, I was actually making the opposite.
Yeah, no, I'm just telling you the argument of Thessalonians. I'm not arguing what you said. I'm just saying this is the general tenor of Thessalonians and what he's arguing for there. All right, so we'll be here until 2 now, thanks to Richard. And Richard sent out for lunch for everybody. I want everybody to have lunch now because they're hungry. No, you're not. And by the way, Richard's questions, we have kind of a unique relationship where I was busting each other's chops, and when we're dragging wire up over in these ceilings and getting dirty and stuff like that. This is exactly what we sound like. But what happens in all these things is we get language and we merge it and we grab a piece out of the Olivet Discourse and a piece from Thessalonians 4 and 2 Thessalonians, and a little bit from Revelation, and it gets pieced together, and it sounds like Bible, but you're not putting it together in the same way that the Bible puts it. And it actually becomes a Bible on top of the Bible, because it's put together in ways and structured, and it ends up with an edifice all of its own that really isn't the Bible at all. And it becomes this sort of science fiction kind of thing. And so I'm trying to tether you to the text. And so that's what we're going to do in Revelation 1-3. All right, so here are the 7 things. All right, ready? 1, the purpose of revelation is not obscurity. It's not confusion. That's what we just read. It's to show, it's to communicate, it's to testify, it's to hear, it's to heed the words of, it's to get blessed by it. It's to see it. It's to know what must soon take place. It's not so you won't know, it's so you will know. And it's written to people 2,000 years ago, not written to you. In other words, the people that read this had every expectation of, at the conclusion of the reading, saying, okay, now I get it. I understand completely. And if you're going to do grammatical historical interpretation, then you have to understand what they understood, or you don't understand the book at all. All right? Number 2, its stated style is visions. What he saw, do you see what he says here? The things that he saw, the words of the prophecy are connected to what he saw at the end of verse 2. Now, what the prophet saw, you say, well, that's just a one-off. No. John uses that phrase 52 times in Revelations. There's only 20 pages in the whole book, right? So that's like a couple times every page he's saying what he saw. So this is visionary language, and you're supposed to understand that he is to write down what he sees in a vision. So you should expect it to look different. Now, everything that you need to understand about a vision is already described for you in Scripture. Let's turn to Numbers 12. And you say, well, what does it mean to have... Anybody know anybody from Henderson, Minnesota? Yeah, no, me neither. Yeah, I know. I'm getting a call 4 times a day from Boston. It's driving me crazy. Who are these people? I don't answer the call, but Yeah, that's right. It's my bookie calling. You still owe the vig. Jerry, just for us. All right, so how do you understand visionary language?
Numbers what?
12. God is going to speak to Moses, and he's going to describe how he speaks to prophets and how he speaks to Moses. And he speaks to Moses and prophets in 2 separate ways, in 2 different ways. He speaks to prophets in visions, and what does that look like? And he speaks to Moses face to face, which is in propositional speech, which is unique for God. So verse 6 of chapter 12, God is speaking. Hear now my words. If there is a prophet among you, I, the Lord, shall make myself known to him in a vision. This is just how I'm going to speak through prophets. It'll be visionary language. And I shall speak with him in a dream. So visions and dreams, that's how prophets get their information. But that's not going to be true. Not so with my servant Moses. What? He is faithful in all my household. With him I speak mouth to mouth, which means face-to-face, propositional. I'm speaking to him completely different. Moses was unique in all of revelatory history and how the Lord spoke to him. Verse 8, and now he further describes what it means to speak mouth to mouth. Even openly, it's going to be just wide open speech. And now he goes back to what it looks like with prophets, not in dark sayings. So visions and dreams are dark sayings. Dark doesn't mean evil. It means obscure. It means more vague. It means cloudy. It means fuzzy. It means, it's not, it's not a chemical formulaic kind of speech. It's imagery. It's visions, it's dreams. And behold the form of the Lord, and why were you not afraid of speaking against my servant Moses? He's talking about Miriam and Aaron there. So the point is that what you're going to get in Revelation is not the language that you're used to in any other part of the Bible. And all of the prophets are full of this kind of language. Ezekiel, Zechariah, Isaiah, behold, I saw the Lord high and lifted. I saw. All the prophetic language is full of this sort of language. And so you should expect images and metaphors and things of that sort that don't look the same. You should expect a lot of symbols. That's what's supposed to be here. You're not reading the New York Times when you read the book of Revelation. It's poetry. You have to learn to read poetry in a different way. This is apocalyptic, image-based, visionary-based language, and you have to learn to read it. It reads differently. The good news is, every so often in the book of Revelation, not only does John tell you that this is how he speaks, but he actually gives you the correspondent of the symbol so you can track with him. And I'll give you a couple of those. Look at verse 20 of chapter 1. I wrote down a couple of these just quickly. I can't show them all to you. But as you're reading, you will notice these things if you reread it. It says, as for the mystery of the 7 stars, which you saw in my right hand. Now this is a vision, right? Everything he's writing is a vision. And the 7 golden lampstands. Now he's going to tell you what those particular symbols mean. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches, and the 7 lampstands are the 7 churches. So now it's like, having a little key at the bottom of the map. And he's going to do this periodically throughout Revelation. But what that tells you right away is you're not dealing with propositional speech in the same way. You're not dealing with that kind of language. When you come to me and say, I read the book of Revelation literally, you're making me nervous. Because John didn't write it literally. He wrote it symbolically. And he did that under the direction of the Holy Spirit. And if you read it in the way that he did not write it, you will come to understand something he did not intend for you to understand. So you must, grammatical, historical, grammatical. What kind of grammar are you dealing with? You're dealing with visions. Turn over to chapter 17, verse 18. You'll see this again. And there's more of these. I just picked out a couple. Chapter 17, verse 18. The woman whom you saw is not a woman. It's the great city. So you're reading along, you're reading about this woman, and you're like, oh, I wonder what her name is. I wonder where she lives. And I wonder, what color her lipstick is. He's talking about a city, a culture, and it's not just any kind of city. It's a great city which reigns over the kings of the earth. You talk about the capital of a government. And he's speaking in code language, if I can put it that way, about governments of the Roman Empire. Let your eyes fall back up to verse 9. Here is of the same chapter, because it's right there in front of me. Here is the mind which has wisdom. If you want to understand some wisdom, that's going to give you a clue. Be wise about how you read this. The 7 heads that he's been talking about, the 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits. And they have 7 heads and 7 mountains, and now he said, oh, don't forget, they are 7 kings. 5 of those kings have already fallen, and here it is, 1 is. What does 1 is mean?
The present.
Yeah, 1 is present right now. 1 is alive right now. There's a king alive. He's not talking about the distant future, 3,000 years before, for the last generation of humanity just before the Lord comes that you won't be here for anyway, probably. He's talking about something right now. And he said that 1 king is right now. And you better understand who it is. The other has not yet come. There's more kings coming. He's talking about the Roman Empire, of course. And when he comes, he must remain a little while. The beast, which was and is not, is himself also an eighth, and is one of the seven, and he goes on to destruction. So you're getting all of this imagery language. The 10 horns which you saw are the 10 kings. Horns aren't horns, they're kings. They represent something. So you have to look for all this language. It's embedded. Look at chapter 19, verse 8. Since we have been talking about who are the good guys and bad guys in Revelation. So it was given to her. Who's the her? It's the church, the bride of Christ. It was given to her to clothe herself in fine linen. Do you think you're going to get fine linen? You think that you want to take that literally, do you? No, because he tells you that the fine linen is what? The righteous acts of the saints. You need to be careful here. There's nothing literal in this way that people use the word literal in the book of Revelation. Not a single thing in that, and not in the way you're using it. When you read something literal, you read it, unless you want to sound like, you just lost your mind. Literal means literally. In other words, we read poetry as literal poetry. We read history as literal history. But you don't get to use one of these words without the other. Literal what? In language. When it says Jesus is a door, does he have hinges and a doorknob? Now, why do you think when you read Jesus is a door that it means that he's the entry to something? Because you took that class with your poetry teacher in high school. And she at least taught you not to quite be that pedantic about how you read things. Someone said to me last night, I don't read fiction because I don't understand it. Right, I get that. If a fiction writer, my daughter has a degree in literature, she can take out one of the great classic books and show you all kinds of things you never thought were even in there. Just because the authors are trying to communicate particular themes and things like that. So we don't take things, and I'll give you one more because this comes up over again. Look at chapter 20, verse 2. Because, and he laid hold of the dragon. The dragon, by the way, do you think there's actual physical, literal dragons coming out of the sky? Do you think that's what God's up to? I mean, stop. With 10 heads and 15 horns and, 30 eyes hanging out of their head. And honestly? No. You're just going to end up, feeling... and he laid hold of the dragon, the serpent of old, and so now you can know when you read the book who is the devil, who is Satan, and he bound him for 1,000 years. So the dragon is Satan, and there's all kinds of other symbols like that. So one, the purpose of Revelation is not to obscure and confuse. Number two, Revelation is written in visionary images. And it's not to be read like the other passages of Scripture. It's not to be read like the Psalms. When you read the Psalms, it says that God has an arm. Does God have an arm? Does God have an arm? Yeah. Do this. No, he does not have an arm. God is spirit. He doesn't have an arm. I have an arm. I'm a human being. God does not have an arm. So when the Psalms say you are saved by the right hand of the Lord, what does that mean? That's a metaphor, a poetic metaphor for saying that he saves you by his strength and his power. That's what right hand stands for. Right? So you have to learn to read in a way that's quite a bit more sophisticated than you've been taught in school. It's not your fault. I don't want you to feel bad about it at all. Of course this is different. Of course it's new. But take the time to learn how to read apocalyptic literature before you make decisions about what you think it's saying. Because honestly, it ends up crazy. All right, so if it's written to you in symbols and images, where do you find the clues to those symbols and images? In other words, if it's symbols and images, do I get to just put any symbol and image in there that I want to? And that's my accusation against dispensationalists. Every time they read about locusts or something, it's, Huey Bell helicopters or nuclear bombs or microchips in your skin or a cashless society. By the way, you already have a cashless society. If you don't know anything about money, you're already in a cashless society. You just don't know it yet. You've been cashless a long time. So, if you let your imagination get away with you, all those symbols in Revelation, you'll plug that crap in. I mean, it could have been worse, let's just say. But, you'll plug that stuff in, and then people will congratulate you, like, oh, he has the secret knowledge. No, he doesn't. He's just a knucklehead. He doesn't have any secret knowledge. All right, so where do we get the symbols from? 100% of the symbols in the book of Revelation are almost all in the Old Testament, and if they're not in the Old Testament, they're in the New Testament. Look no further than your Bible. So if you're saying, I don't know where that symbol is, get out your concordance. It's always somewhere else. It always appears somewhere else, and that somewhere else will tell you why John used it, because John is writing to people who knew their Old Testaments. We've stopped doing that now because, remember, the Old Testament's not written to you. All the prophets, if you're a dispensationalist, were written to a generation yet to come. So you can ignore them. Did you know that? Yes. And you can ignore Sermon on the Mount while you're at it, according to them, because that's for the millennium. All right, so if everything's a symbol, guess what else is a symbol? This is number 4. Guess what else is a symbol? Every number is also a symbol. So you're reading about eyes and horns and dragons and harlots riding on, weird color horses, and Jesus comes and he's got a sword coming. You think Jesus has a physical sword coming out of his mouth? Stop. What is a sword? What does a sword stand for in Scripture? It is yes, it's the Word of God. So that's just another way, in a pictorial way, of imaging that Christ is the Word made flesh. The sword comes out of his mouth. He speaks the Word of God. That's all that symbol's for. Now, everything in Revelation is a symbol, and then if you're reading it like that, and you're saying, okay, that's probably a symbol, because that's pretty weird, it's probably a symbol. And then you get to the numbers and go, oh no, but that's not. You can't do that in the middle of a verse. And you can't do that in the middle of the book. Every number in Revelation is equally symbolic of something. And the numbers you have to pay attention to are 7, 10, and 12. 7 and 10 and 12, and their multiples appear over and over and over again. There are 7 churches, 7 lampstands, 7 spirits of God, 7, 7, 7 bowls, 7 trumpets, right? 7, 7, 7, 7, 7. 12 of this, 12 of that, it's the 12 apostles, the 12 prophets of the Lamb on the foundation of the throne. 12 times 12 is 144,000. 12, 12, 12, 12, right? 10, 10, 10, 10 heads, 10 diadems, 10 adorns. 10 is everywhere. And then the multiples of 10, 1,000. Oh, that's a multiple of 10. Isn't that interesting? All right, number 5. It's meant to encourage the church that's under attack. The reason that it was written was it was intentionally so that pagans could not read it. Because they didn't know their Old Testament. They didn't understand the things of God. They certainly didn't understand the revelation of Christ. And so it was meant to encourage a church that's under attack. And believe me, this church is under attack in the 1st century. All right. Number 6, it's written about things that, we already read this, must soon take place. In verse 3, the time is near. Now remember I told you if an idea like that is sandwiched, everything in between is even more important. And look at chapter 22, verse, what do I need? Verse 6 and 7, I guess. 22, 6 and 7. He says the same thing at the end, just to remind you. And he said to me, these words are faithful and true. And the Lord, the God of the spirits of the prophets, sent an angel to show his bondservants, Christ's bondservants, the things which must soon take place. Now, Richard, and behold, I am coming quickly. If you don't know what I am coming quickly means, and you're sitting here 2,000 years later and he hasn't come quickly, and you say to Christians, the Bible says he's coming quickly, and it says to you 2,000 years, you either haven't understood correctly, or you haven't understood coming correctly. And my guess is it's coming. Because when it says he's coming quickly, it means he's coming in judgment. That's what coming always means, every time in the Old Testament. He comes in judgment. All right? And he comes in judgment over and over again in history, and you'll see that. All right? Otherwise, this is a lie. He didn't come quickly. Unless you want to just start changing the meaning of words. Quickly doesn't mean quickly. It can mean, 15,000 years or something.
Pastor Steve, wouldn't that go along with some of the teaching that God's, one day in
1,000 years a day, days 1,000 years. That's a favorite one from Peter, yes. No. Because, Peter's not making the case that this is how you do time management in the redemptive history of God, right? He's making another point completely when he says a day is 1,000 years, 1,000 years to a day. He's saying that God sits outside of time. He created time. And in that, Peter is using so that you'll be comforted when it looks like you've been suffering for too long a period of time. But coming quickly means quickly. All right, and finally, I'll give you the big theme of, you want to know what the theme of Revelation is? You already know the theme. It's a song that some of you have sung over and over again. And the theme is victory in Jesus. It is to show a beleaguered group of people that no matter how much suffering they're going to go through, and believe me, at this point, you don't probably know the history of the Jewish wars where Rome came in and virtually annihilated Jerusalem. There's not a stone left standing. You go try to find a stone in that temple in Jerusalem, you still won't find it. Women were eating their babies. They starved them to death. They burned them to death. They buried them alive. It was you've never seen anything like it in your life. You've never seen anything like it. And Jesus says at that time in the Olivet Discourse, flee to the mountains. Flee to the mountains. And that's exactly what the Jewish Jerusalem population did. They fled to the mountains, and many of those people were saved from that destruction that Jesus prophesied would happen. He said, you in your generation will not pass away until you see this happen, and that's what happened. And Nero came in and killed Peter and Paul. And so that's what happened. All right, so there's clear verses help us interpret the unclear verses, right? So Paul says, you wrestle not with principalities and powers, but with flesh and blood. And don't listen to a thing I say from now on. Disregard everything I have ever taught you, because it's backwards. I'm dyslexic. Clearly, I have a problem. We wrestle not with flesh and blood, with things that you see on the surface, but with principalities and powers. And then he doesn't say much more about it. You know why? He doesn't have to, because if you want to understand that verse, that's the entire book. That's the entire book of Revelation. That will unpack that whole verse for you. What John is saying over and over again is this: things are not what they seem. And if you want to understand culture and how the Lord is really working behind the scenes, the book of Revelation is the best book in the world for that. It will tell you everything about everything. It's unbelievable. And it all does it in images, and that's why it's timeless. That's why every generation of Christian can be encouraged by this. This is not just for this generation, and it's not for some distant generation that we've never heard of just prior to the coming of Christ. And then everybody in between, we get to sit around and speculate and turn into Gene Dixon and write silly books. This is for you today, to be encouraged so that you'll know that we wrestle not with flesh and blood, but with principalities and powers, and behind the scenes that God is working. And you should not be discouraged, and you should not be afraid, because he's working to the end of his glory and to your safety. And so that's what he's going to do. All right, I have 10 minutes. Of course, we went over last night, so it's just the way it is. All right, so let's turn now to Revelation 13 and apply some of these verses, principles to Revelation 13. And of course, I'm not going to do the whole chapter. I'm just going to do a couple, just to give you the principles of how it works. And then we'll have a little bit of fun with 666. And the dragon stood on the sand of the seashore. Who's the dragon? Satan. All right, so good. That one got solved for you. John told you right out loud. Here's the key. The dragon is Satan. It's not that thing in the movies. All right, you don't take the dragon literally. You take it literarily. All right? You read it as literal apocalyptic literature. It's literal imagery. The dragon is standing on the seashore. Then I saw a beast coming up out of the sea. So, okay, get the dragon. And now Satan is being, the beast is coming towards Satan. And now the beast gets described. He has 10 horns. 7 heads. Apparently a couple heads have more than one horn.
He's an employee.
Yep, but you're cheating because you were here last night. All right, so he comes up out of the sea, having 10. Don't steal people's stuff.
See, I take my notes.
All right, well, I'm pleased for that, actually. Yes, thank you. But I saw the beast coming up out of the sea, having 10 horns, 7 heads, and on his horns were 10 diadems. What's a diadem? Crown. Bring forth the royal diadems and crown him, crown him. Okay, a diadem's a crown. And what does a crown stand for? Rule, authority, okay? So this beast is wearing authoritative crowns, and on his head were blasphemous names. So if a beast with all these horns and heads wearing crowns comes up, and there's all these names on his forehead that are blasphemous, is that one of the good guys or one of the bad guys? He's a bad guy. You don't have to go much further than that. You don't have to, have much knowledge of apocalyptic literature to know we're dealing with one of the bad guys, and this bad guy is controlled by Satan. And now he's going to get further described, and if you drew a picture of this, you couldn't get all the imagery into the one beast. And that's on purpose. And the beast, which I saw, was also not only heads, horns, names, but was like a leopard. But he wasn't just like a leopard, because his feet were like those of a bear. And his mouth was like the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power. And the dragon gave him his throne, and the dragon gave him his authority. So this beast that looks like this crazy thing if you drew it on a board is symbolic for someone who represents, or something that represents, Satan. Now you can speculate and let your imagination spin off into science fiction land with this. Or you can go to your Bible and it'll tell you exactly what this beast is. Which would you prefer? Yeah, it's Russia. It's Russia! That's right, Bill. Thank you. It's Russia. Russia! No. Don't you recognize this composite of these 4 beasts? Where's it from? This is just a composite of the 4 beasts of Daniel chapter 7. So John is just using Daniel chapter 7. There's 4 beasts in Daniel chapter 7, describing 4 godless empires. Right? So far, so good. Babylon, Media, Persia. China didn't exist as China when Daniel was writing. So it's not China. See, that's what gets you in trouble. Media Persia, Greece, and Rome. And those were successive godless empires that Daniel's prophesying about. And now John takes those and he puts them into the beast as the picture of the beast. So what, and this was going to encourage you and discourage you at the same time today, given our timing. What does this beast represent?
The devil?
No, the devil is not the beast. No, the Antichrist is not mentioned. Stick to the language and stick to Daniel.
Government?
Yes, godless government. The papacy. That's what Luther and Calvin thought. This is the beast out of the sea, represents all godless governments that persecute the church. That's what this beast represents. And Satan controls that, and you should know that. Not just today, not at some distant point in the future. They needed to know it then. Every generation of Christian in the Christian church has needed to know it. We need to know it now. And churches coming after us and Christians that live after us until Christ returns will need to know it then too, to encourage them. The government is not your friend. Period. Don't think it is. Don't ever think it is. All right. So that's one beast. There's another beast because I got to run here. But, and remember what Roland said? That's the Antichrist. And that is what some people say. The Antichrist, is the Antichrist mentioned in the book of Revelation? No. The beast is not the Antichrist. If John knows who the Antichrist is, where is the only time the Antichrist is mentioned? 5 times mentioned by who? John in what epistles? 1st and 2nd John, right? And he says many antichrists have come already. He's writing in the 1st century. So he knows about it. He's written about it. He said many antichrists have already come. And many more will come throughout history. They are just anything and any system and anybody opposed to Christ. If John had wanted you to think that the beast was the Antichrist, wouldn't he be above all of the scriptures writers the one to plug that in? Yes, because he's the only other. It's the only other place it's mentioned is when he writes, but he doesn't, does he? Do this. All right. Verse 11. You know why? Because the beast is not the Antichrist. The beast is the governments that are godless. That's different. Then I saw another beast in verse 11. So there aren't just two beasts. One beast, there are two beasts. There are two beasts. There are not just one beast. This beast is different. Then I saw another beast coming up out of the earth. This one doesn't come out of the sea. This one comes up out of the earth. In other words, it derives from a completely different environment, right? Not the sea environment, but the earth environment. And he had 2 horns like a lamb. Where have you heard that language before? In Revelation 5. John has already talked about the lamb. He said, all around are gathered around the throne, and heaven is breathless because there's an announcement made that no one is worthy to open the scrolls, and the scrolls reveal the will of God for humanity, and everybody says there's no one worthy, and remember the scene, everybody looks around heaven, and there's no one strong enough, there's no one powerful enough, apparently there's not a TV ministry big enough, there's not book sales enough to do it, there's no one available that's worthy. Who could be worthy enough to open the scrolls that would unveil the will of God in Revelation 5, and they announce, behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah is going to open the scrolls, and you can hear heaven going, finally we got a power player. Type A personality, this is going to be great. Surely the Lion of the tribe of Judah, someone who's worthy to open the scrolls, he's big, he's powerful, he's strong, probably the biggest guy in the room, real tough guy. And behold, I looked, and there was a lamb. as if slain. God always does things the opposite way you think he's going to do them. And so what you call and think is power is a slain little lamb, the weakest of animals, not even a grown-up sheep, a little lamb, and he's dead. He's slain. He's dripping with blood. And this beast comes out of the sea, and he wants to look like that. But he doesn't speak as the Lion of the tribe of Judah. How does he speak? And he spoke as a dragon. Who's that? Who's the dragon? Satan. And he exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence. In other words, he now is in partnership with the first beast, which is what? Godless governments. He partners with the first beast, and he makes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the government, whose fatal wound was healed, and he performs great signs, so that he even makes the fire come down out of heaven to the earth in the presence of men. Where did you see that before in Scripture? Elijah. When he was facing the false prophets. This beast is the beast of false religion and false prophecy. And it partners with godless government. And for all times until Christ returns, every generation of Christian has to watch out for that. Because you'll be fooled by it if you're not careful. All right. Now let's jump down to verse 16, because I know And he causes all, this beast causes all, the small, the great, the rich, and the poor. Remember, this is the beast of religion. The rich and the poor and the free men and the slaves to be given a mark on their right hand and on their forehead. And he provides that no one will be able to buy or sell except the one who has the mark, either the name of the beast or the number of his name. Hear his wisdom. Let him who understands and calculate the number of the beast, for the number is that of a man. And his number is 666. It's not 3 consecutive sixes with commas. His number is 666. All right, so first of all, this second beast is now controlling buying and selling, but I thought he was a religious false prophet beast. Where did you see the problem of buying and selling in false religion? You saw it when Jesus went into the temple and he cleared it out with a whip. Why? Because they were falsely buying and selling. My household should be called a house of prayer. What did they sell? And what did you have to buy to worship in that temple? Doves, sacrifices, lambs, animals. That's what was being bought and sold. And your currency was being exchanged so you could give the correct offering when you were coming in from all over the other parts of the country. This false beast will not let you worship in the official temple. That's what the buying and selling is. It's not about a cashless society. Look in your Bible. This is the false beast of religion. And there will come a time where Christians will have to choose whether or not they're going to have the state church of Germany or they're going to be like Dietrich Bonhoeffer, killed. Fulfillment of Revelation 13 right there. And it's happened over and over again in human history, and it's going to happen again, and it might happen to us. And if the government gets control of churches, like it did in China, this is the same thing. This is just the Chinese government. If you don't worship at our church, we'll kill you. And by the way, what happened in the glory of the Lord when China did that? There's now 100 million Christians in China. It just exploded, and that's what happened to us. People say, what if they shut us down? Don't worry about it. We'll quadruple.
You got a solid yet?
Victory in Jesus. We do, and it's a good one. But, they'll probably look at the church seller first, so we'll probably find another one. All right, so one more. Now we'll do 666. All right, and I know I'm just briefly. All I'm trying to communicate to you is that all these symbols, don't go outside of the Bible. Don't use the fiction of your imagination. All this stuff is already embedded in your Bible. You can find it in your Bible. Go to your Bible, and how is it used? Buying and selling, all that stuff is used. Now we're going to talk about the mark on the forehead. Where does the mark on the forehead come from? It's in your Bible. It's already there. And do you actually want to turn to it, or do you want to? You do? Okay, Exodus 13. Yeah. This is how far back this goes. Exodus chapter 13, look at verse 9. And I won't read all this, and this is all through your Old Testament. I'm just going to read this one, and you can go home and trace it through. And it shall serve, you shall tell your son on that day, saying, it is because of what the Lord did for me when I came out of Egypt. The Lord redeemed us out of Egypt. So that when you come out of Egypt, you understand that that's the first biblical miracle of redemption. You're redeemed from the slavery of Egypt. And it shall serve as a sign to you on your hand and as a reminder on your forehead, that the law of the Lord may be in your mouth. For with a powerful hand the Lord brought you out of Egypt. And to this day, Jews still wear the phylactery on their forehead and on their arm, and they still tie it on the doorpost of their house. When I was working on Wall Street in New York, I used to go in, and I knew I was in a Jewish office, because there would be a little piece of the Torah on the doorpost in a piece of plastic screwed into the doorpost, and I knew going in who I was dealing with, and I'd be respectful about that. This has always been a symbol of, will you allow the Word of God to shape your forehead, your mind, and your right hand, your action, word and deed. It is not a physical mark. It was never a physical mark. People say, oh, they're going to put a physical mark on us. Don't you think the Roman Empire had all kinds of physical marks? Where do you think tattoos came from? They tattooed every slave in the Roman Empire. We've had tattoos for a long time. We've had marks for a long time. Hitler used a mark. Nothing new. But it wasn't the mark of the beast, was it? The mark of the beast is, will you accept what the beast says and put that in your forehead and on your right hand? Or chapter 14, verse 1. Look at Revelation, because he's contrasting two kinds of marks. 14, verse 1, and this is why I hate chapter headings. Here is wisdom. Now, we're going to read through this like that chapter mark isn't there. Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for the number is that of a man, and his number is 666. Then I looked, and behold, the Lamb was standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his name and the name of his Father written on their foreheads. Now let me ask you a question. If the mark is a physical, microchip in you, does that mean Jesus is going to put a microchip in your forehead? The question answers itself. It becomes stupid. It's not a physical mark. It's, do you have the mark of Christ on you, the law of God written on your heart and mind and in your word and deed? And the mark of the beast is a counterfeit mark. It will look like religion. It will look like false and counterfeit faith. But it will be wrong. You'll be caused to worship the beast of government instead of being caused to worship Christ. And you will not be able to buy and sell, because that beast will keep you out of his temple in buying and selling and making sacrifices in his temple. That will not be allowed. And so you'll have to be driven underground. And that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen.
You got plenty of food in the cellar?
Yeah. So, all right. So now the mark 666, and I'll let you go home. let's I did 3 of these last night, but I just want to do one. You see Revelation 13:3, it says, I saw one of his heads as if it had been slain, and his fatal wound was healed, and the whole earth was amazed and followed after the beast. All right. Now, remember, I'm going to read now from the Tim LaHaye Study Bible, the meaning of that verse.
Which verse was it?
Revelation 13:3. I just want you to see the Tim LaHaye Study Bible. And I have all kinds of examples of these, but this is what Tim LaHaye Study Bible says that verse means. In the middle of the tribulation, the Antichrist will be killed. He will lie in state briefly, and then actually be indwelt personally by Satan, who was cast out of heaven in the previous chapter. Now, what's interesting about that is not one word of that can be found in that verse. Not a single word. But this is what people believe. This is what they write. He made $40 million writing that nonsense. And it's pure speculation, imagination, and has nothing to do with the Word of God. Now you wonder why I go crazy when people tell me, oh yeah, I'm a literal reader of the Bible. No, you're not. You're the most speculative, imaginative reader of the Bible I've ever seen in my life. Stick to the text. That verse says nothing about an Antichrist. It says nothing about an Antichrist lying in state. It says nothing about Satan coming to indwell an Antichrist. It has nothing to do with that. You made all of that up, and then at the same time you made it up, you with a straight face looked at Christians and said, oh yeah, I'm reading it literally. No, you're not. No, you're not. I am. I am. By the way, he's dead. He knows better now. All right. Everything that he predicted did not happen. Everything he predicted did not happen. Everything that every one of these books have predicted has not happened. How many of these lies will you believe and call it literal truth? It's fake. It's designed to make money. It's imaginative. It's speculative. It's nonsense. Don't give it the imprimatur of the literal, grammatical, historical reading of Scripture, which the rest of us have been doing since the Reformation. Sola Scriptura, by Scripture alone. This stuff didn't pop up till the early 1900s. It's weird. All right, so the number 666. Do you know what gematria is? Gematria is Jewish use of numbers and symbols of numbers to communicate names and things of that sort. Because Hebrew, Greek, and Aramaic do not have numbers. All they have are number symbols that are assigned to the alphabet of Greek, Hebrew, and Aramaic. So you have to sort of know what the alphabet is, and then know what the numbers assigned to each letter of the alphabet is. When I was learning Hebrew in seminary, we had to learn all the numbers that were assigned equally to the letters as well. So gematria, what you do in gematria, if you want to hide the name of somebody, you first change it to a different language than the source language. In this case, Revelation, the source language is Greek. So in this case, it was changed to Hebrew. And then you take each one of those letters and you assign it the numerical value of the letter. And if I take the Greek word for beast, which is therion, and if I convert that to Hebrew and I add up the numbers, what do you think it miraculously adds up to? 666. And furthermore, remember what we read? And one is, there's a king right now, there's an emperor right now, and he's a bad one. And that was Nero, and his name in Greek was Neron Kaiser. Neron Kaiser in Greek. If I convert Neron Kaiser in Greek for Nero to Hebrew, and if I convert the Hebrew into the appropriate numbers for the Hebrew alphabet, what do you think that miraculously adds up to? 666. That's what he was trying to communicate. There's one right now, the time is here, and you got to be careful. And sure enough, Nero killed Peter and Paul. So it's nothing mysterious. You want me to do a couple more for you that are fun, then I'll let you go, all right? These are going to be more fun ones. Because, and I have to have it because I had to write them out. Do you know that the Antichrist was uniformly, and some still think, thought of as Hitler? And of course you can imagine why. You know, they were getting marks, and they were Jews. It's like, ooh, that's got to be the Antichrist. And so they did a little thing, and this is how they proved that Hitler was the Antichrist. And I had to write this down because, you know, obviously I didn't memorize this one in seminary. So what they did was they took Hitler and they took the English alphabet, so A equals 100, you know, B equals 101, C equals 102, and so forth, right? So that would be the numerical value. So Hitler would be, this would be 107 plus 108, that one's obvious. Plus, if you're not doing the math quickly in your head, and I couldn't, I had to write this down, 109. And then, where am I? Oh, 111. And this is probably 104, yeah. And this is 117. Add it up, and that's 666. And so there are still, I've read fundamentalist, pre-millennial dispensationalists in their books still claim that Hitler's going to come back from the dead and he's the Antichrist still because of this. All right, so I'm going to do one more that's more fun because I had some concerns growing up. And my point is 666 has been used to identify every crazy, goofy person in the history of humanity. So don't you be next. So, but I was concerned growing up. I had 3 children, and there's this thing on in my house, and I thought, you know, it's like backmasking. You know, you play Grand Funk Railroad backwards, and it says, remember that? and the guy in my house, over and over again, my children, I was worried. You know, I want my children to be safe, and I want them to be godly children. And I wanted to raise them in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, and they're sitting in at this point in front of VCRs, and there's this little purple dinosaur, Barney. I'm like, I don't know. He looks like the beast to me. It's like a dragon. He's like a dragon. That's right. So I just want to show you, I worked it out, and boy, I put a stop to that. Cute purple dinosaur, and I wrote this down because I didn't want to miss a word of it. Now, as you know, the first step in gematria is to convert to another language, and we're going to convert this to Latin. And as you know, all U's in Latin are V's, right? You've seen that on buildings, right? So this is what this looks like in Latin. Boy, and this was troubling. You can see where this is going. Oh man, and I'm getting worried. My kids are still sitting there watching it, the dragon, the purple dragon, and they're, you know, laughing and giggling and this thing. And I say, I know what I'm going to do. For my numerical system, I'm going to drag out all of the Roman numerals from this Latin, right? So I did. I took out the C, and I took out the V, right? And I took out the V again. Oh, you see where this is going. I took out an L. Yeah, that's a problem. And then I took out a D. That's another one. And then I took out the I. That's one. Oh, I wonder what that adds up to, boy. And I'm really starting to sweat with my kids. You know what a C is in Roman numerals? It's 100. Do you know what that is? That's a 5, right? You know that one. And you know that one. Do you know what the L is? Yes, good. All right, D now. Who's the real scholars in here? 500. Yeah, 500. Yeah, 500. Yeah. All right, everybody can get this one. 1 is 1. Plus 5. Go ahead, take out your calculator. I knew it. I know. I know. It's a bad day when that little purple dragon adds up to 666. I just want to tell you. Listen, now, we're just having a little fun to end things up today. You don't have to do this stuff. All of the symbols of the Bible are in the Bible. Don't go outside of it. And if you can't find it, get a concordance and look it up. You can Google every verse now. You don't have to, honestly, it's all in there. And if you have a symbol that seems odd to you, it's like, where does that come from? Go back and find it in your Bible, and then see how it's used in your Bible, and that will give you the meaning of that symbol. And when you do that, you'll stay completely connected and linked to the text. And then you will be a literal reader of the Bible and not a speculator. And you won't have to guess at stuff. And you won't have to wonder about nuclear bombs and every time something happens in Palestine and what Benjamin Netanyahu had for breakfast and, you know, stuff like that. I mean, it just won't matter to you anymore because victory's in Jesus and you're safe in his arms. The world is going to come to the exact conclusion he wants it to come to on the exact day he wants it to come to that conclusion. Until then, live for him, trust him, be faithful. All right? Let's pray and I'll get you out of here. Lord, we thank you for the opportunity to study your word, and I realize that this can be challenging for some folks because they have, for so many years, maybe accepted what they have been taught and in good faith, and read their Bible in good faith under that system. But I pray that you'll open their hearts, if that be the case, so that they might see that the literal reading of Scripture is enough. We don't need to speculate. And for those who have maybe never seen this before, it's all brand new and wondering what's going on, I pray it won't be confusing, but that you'll keep them safe as well, just reading their Scriptures and trusting Christ for their salvation. And I pray these things in his name. Amen. Thank you.